self-esteem, workplace-related topics.
Subscribe.
The Voices of Victory podcast show.
Voices of Victory.
Vision.
Voices of Victory.
Leadership.
Voices of Victory.
Workplace-related topics.
The Voices of Victory.
Voices of Victory. Voices of Victory. Voices of Victory.
It's time for the show. You are now listening to the Voices of Victory podcast show.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mario Di Leone.
Hello and welcome to the Voices of Victory podcast. I am your host, and today is Sunday, May 4th, 8:18 a.m. Exactly. And today's Voices of Victory episode is going to be Perception Isn't Reality. It's a remix of what you think you know. Let's break it all down, shall we? We've all heard that phrase, especially in customer service. Perception is reality. Perception is reality. It sounds profound, doesn't it? But here's the big fat truth. It's only half the story. Perception isn't reality. It's the interpretation of reality. And that distinction, it changes everything. And today, on Voices of Victory, we're going to unpack what that really means psychologically, neurologically, and even energetically. Because once you understand this, you stop reacting to life and you start shaping it. The brain doesn't see reality. It builds it. Let's start with that very science so we can actually understand. Your brain is never passive. It's never a passive observer of the world. It doesn't simply record what's quote-unquote out there. Instead, it acts more like a prediction machine. It takes in raw data from your senses, light waves, sound waves, chemical particles, tactile signals, and then it tries to make sense of it all, using your memory that contain references, experiences, and beliefs. And what about your sight? What about your vision? Sight is just photons bouncing off objects and entering your eye. Smell? It's just molecules traveling through the air. Sound? Just vibrations in the air hitting your eardrum. It's all information. Your whole damn reality is data. The brain assembles these puzzle pieces into something meaningful, and it's really good at doing this. So good, in fact, you often forget it's even happening. And people go on autopilot, that tick-tock, punch in, punch out, repetitive way of life, just running the old scripts and programs. But here's the catch. Your brain isn't just interpreting data objectively. It's influenced, sometimes heavily, by your past experiences, by your emotional state currently, by your environment, and especially, most of all, your beliefs. Your beliefs set the coordinates. I always say the brain is your GPS. You want to think of your brain as a highly advanced GPS, directionally speaking. But unlike your car's navigation system, this doesn't come preloaded with a map. It builds the map from childhood, from conditioning, based on where you believe you're headed. Most people are a function of their programming, the way they've acquired information and been conditioned since they were a child. And if you believe the world is threatening, your brain filters that exact thing for evidence in order to confirm that. And if you believe you're capable and worthy, it starts pulling in resources, providing you with clarity and relationships that might even align with that view. Now, there's still negotiation. In a relationship, you still have to put effort and actually negotiate through that and be able to bounce back from those ideas. It's not magic. It's neurological bias. What you focus on, you find. Period. What you expect, you experience. Period. What you believe, you reinforce. That's not some woo-woo concept. It's actually neuroscience. It's called confirmation bias, and we all have it. Even the most rational among us are walking through life being gently nudged by their preloaded expectations and, of course, their conditioning as well. And this is where we need to pause and breathe and take a moment, because the moment that you realize that your perception is being shaped by your internal settings, you are handed an opportunity because you can actually reprogram the system. Emotions aren't just data, they're actual signals. Emotions, those are a different story. They're still signals. They're not raw data per se, because we can't consider ourselves to be robotic, although there's some people that like to act like Spock. They're signals that rise after your brain has made in interpretation. For example, you hear a loud noise, your ears send vibrations quickly to your brain quickly determines, is that danger or is that just fireworks? Then your emotions kick in, which could be based off of your past. There's a reference somewhere in the past. The fear, maybe relief, maybe joy, maybe annoyance. And based on what your brain decided the sound actually means, because you get to control what things actually mean to you. Emotions don't tell you what it is. They tell you what your brain thinks is going on. And they're trying to help you respond accordingly. And this is why some people get the signals mixed up. And of course, emotions are not always accurate. If you've ever felt anxiety during a calm conversation or anger in traffic with no actual threat, then you've experienced that firsthand. Emotions are signals, not necessarily truths. That's the thing. Now, when it comes to perception, we can understand a few things. Interpretation and energy. So what does this mean practically? It means we're not reacting to reality. We're reacting to the story and narratives that our brains actually tell us. And that's another thing, is that we have a lot of narratives that act as a experiential backbone that provides us with a belief system. I went out with so-and-so person, that person is jaded, therefore all of them are jaded. And if we go one level deeper into quantum theory, and I'm no physicist, but it does remind us that to some degree everything is energy, matter, light, sound, all the vibrating frequencies that are out there. Einstein's equation of E equals mc, right? It tells us that energy and matter are just essentially the same thing, just in different forms. So what we call reality is really just a dynamic field of data and information and energy. It's interpreted through our human nervous system that's been shaped by our memories, shaped by our experience, shaped by our narratives, shaped by our beliefs. And we live in a narrative-based world where everybody's spreading those narratives because they know that behind those narratives is a set of programming, a set of instructions that goes right into the GPS of your life. We don't live in the world as it is. We live in the world as we are. So what guides it all is, with this idea, is everything is information and our brains are interpreting machines. Then what guides the actual interpretation? Beliefs and narratives. Story goes way back to caveman times around the campfire where stories were told. And guess what? They always had some meaning behind them, behind those narratives. And our beliefs are the software through which we run the data of life. They tell our brains what to prioritize, what to ignore, and how to actually respond. They shape our habits, our emotional reactions, and of course, our internal narratives, right? It's because we have an experience, and then there's usually a narrative or story that's formed from that. So if you ever felt stuck, misunderstood, or disconnected, it might not be the world that's out of sync. It might be time for a software update. Maybe taking a good hard look at your framework and how you view the world, the lens in which you view the world, and maybe even the stories that you've been told. And sometimes stories can be lies from other people. And that's the beautiful part, is that you have the power to change it. You can choose new beliefs, reframe old ones, and you can teach your brain new ways to interpret reality. You're not locked into one way of seeing things. You're empowered to create a new lens, one that aligns with your growth, your purpose, and of course your victory. So here comes the fun part with a little bit of cognitive rigidity. Try telling some of these things to someone who's been deeply invested, in such concepts and ideas. Perhaps they're deeply invested in being right over being real. And you'll see what cognitive rigidity really looks like. Because the minute you challenge someone with, what I see is what is, that's the worldview. It's like you've insulted their grandmother, you've burned their favorite hoodie and suggested pineapple on pizza all in one breath. You've challenged their worldview. It has threatened their identity in some way because they've clinged too harshly to a given idea. So they puff up like a peacock. They dig in. They start swinging their favorite intellectual weapon. Like, it's called willful ignorance. I saw it, so it must be true. And here's how that usually goes. You tell someone your perception isn't the full truth. It's shaped by your internal narrative. And they respond with some variation of, well, I trust what I see. Ah, yes, the unshakable authority of the eyeball. Because nothing ever looked like one thing and turned out to be another, right? You couldn't possibly be wrong. You thought that the person was ignoring you and they were just in deep thought. You thought you bombed the meeting and bombed the test, and and everyone else thought you actually nailed it. You thought your boss's silence was, silent judging. It was just a migraine and a coffee shortage. But no, sure, go on. Tell us how your perception is the pinnacle of objective truth. What's the irony here? The people most resistant to hearing this are the ones getting the worst results from their worldview. And of course, instead of upgrading their lens and the way they see the world, or picking apart the narratives that have actually become lies, they double down on defending it because it's connected to their identity. It's like someone is trying to fix blurry vision by squinting even harder instead of getting glasses. The arrogance is literally outdated frameworks. It's the framework and the lens that we cling to, those mental operating systems that haven't been updated since 1998. And they're usually built for comfort, not clarity. And when you suggest that those frameworks are maybe a little outdated, well, here comes the performance art. Well, that's just your opinion. You're overthinking it. There's another one, right? Or I trust my gut. All right, your gut told you to date your ex again. Let's not hold that as a sacred doctrine because it didn't work out. You can almost hear their inner monologue. If I admit that I might be wrong about this, I'd have to rethink a few other things and maybe learn other things, and my whole paradigm would honestly be shattered completely. And that shattered paradigm totally threatens my identity. So instead, they defend dysfunction. They glorify rigidity. They gaslight their own growth. And they wonder why their relationships are strained and their work feels unfulfilling or their life seems to be stuck. You hear that word a lot. I feel stuck. When they say I feel stuck, stuck is just a feeling. There are physical boundaries. There are physical things, but stuck, I feel stuck. You can't feel stuck. You feel stuck because you feel like there's no other options. And why this matters, here's the kicker. It's not just about being right. It's about being effective. Clinging to the belief that perception is reality robs you of your power. It robs you of your ability for interpretation. Because if you want to see all that there is, you've got to start taking a good, deeper, hard look. Because if you outsource your peace, if you outsource your progress, and you outsource your leadership to external circumstances and other people, then you know what? It's a passive posture dressed up as a default, feeling like certainty. When you believe perception is interpretation, though, you take the wheel. You become responsible for the meaning that you assign. You become responsible for the stories and narratives that you tell. And some people say, well, it's not a story. There's facts behind it. There's facts behind it. There's narratives, believe me. Lots of narratives. And the emotion you allow to take root behind all of that just reinforces it. Understand emotional intelligence. That's growth. That's leadership. Leading yourself in the right direction. Let's be real. The reason people resist this truth isn't intellectual. It's emotional. It's accepting that your perception is actually flawed. And that means accepting that you may have misjudged people, misread people, and sabotage your opportunity, reacted poorly in moments that actually called for clarity. And that's a very heavy thing for someone to hold on when it connects to their identity. And if you're not willing to be honest with yourself, you'll just keep blaming everybody else. It's your job, it's your partner, it's your boss, it's all external. It's the system. Yeah, it's for a narrative that you wrote and you directed. And hey, if self-deception had a loyalty program, some people would be platinum elite by now. So here's my final take. If you find yourself defending your perception like it's a gospel, ask yourself this: has it made your life easier, harder, or functional? Has it opened doors or closed minds? Has it elevated your leadership to have sovereignty over your life, or has it shrunk your vision? Because perception is not reality. It's a well-meaning hallucination filtered through your beliefs, your traumas, and think of it as like your Wi-Fi signal strength. And the most dangerous thing is believing it without question and falling into other people's narratives. So let me say it plainly. Perception is not reality. Perception is your brain's best guess at reality, shaped by the beliefs that you carry and the narrative stories that you keep replaying. And the more you replay those stories over and over and over again, the more you express them to people, the more you reinforce them into your identity. It is your interpretation. It is not objective truth. It is, quote unquote, well, people say, well, that's my truth. No, that's your experience and what you gather as a truth. You got to remember, truth has to be universal, has to lend itself to universal concept. What do I mean by that? Let's dive deeper in that for a quick moment. Universal truth. There's, subjective truth, and there's universal truth. And universal truth refers to principles or facts that are consistent and unchanging regardless of individual beliefs or experiences. It goes across the board. For example, law of physics, such as gravity, or a mathematical principle, 2 + 2 = 4. All right? These truths, they actually exist independently of your human perception or, quote unquote, your opinion. On the other hand, subjective truth is based on personal experiences, emotions, or perspectives, meaning it can vary from person to person, and those narratives can vary from person to person. For instance, one person may find joy in a particular activity while another one finds it complete trash. And both truths are valid from both perspectives, at least from their perspectives. But you know what? Most of all, they are shaped by the individual experiences and feelings. And while universal truths are universally applicable, they apply to everybody. There's gravity and water is wet. Subjective truths are uniquely personal and often influenced by cultural, psychological, situational factors, not to mention the damn narratives that are spewed all over social media. And that's the case. We think, then we think that we hold more power than we actually think. It's not power to change every circumstance, but it's power to change how we see it, how we respond, how we lead, how we hold sovereignty over parts of our life. That's where the real transformation begins. Start asking yourself today, what story, what narrative is my brain telling me? And do I still want to believe that? Because in the end, you don't need a new world to live in. You don't need that new world to live a new life. You need a new lens in how you see that world. So that's all I'm going to say about that. This is Voices of Victory. We don't just chase success. We lead with meaning. Until next time, keep asking better questions. Better quality question gives you a better quality answer. Choose better beliefs. Watch your narratives. Pick them apart. Understand that some narratives are pure bullshit lies. And watch your perceptions. And understand your brain is the GPS of your life. And if you can't get that GPS to go due north, then it's going to be a difficult road. And that is all about mastering and understanding not only your perception, but how you program your mind in a healthy, functional, and victorious way. I'll see you on the next episode.